All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call to order the Thursday, October 25th meeting of the Board of Missoula County Commissioners. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, are there any staff or commissioner announcements at this time?
I would just note that folks may have noticed that the Doughboy statue on the courthouse lawn is now kind of enshrouded in plastic. So it's just part of the final part of the project that we are having it all cleaned and polished and waxed to be ready for Veterans Day. So it should be unveiled by then.
Yes.
And there will be a special rededication by veterans on that day.
Yeah, that will be very exciting. Okay, so today we have two agenda items that we will be having public hearings on, but if there's anything that anyone in the audience, media or otherwise, who would like to comment on at this time, now is your opportunity to come up to the mic and comment on that. Seeing none, just a reminder, if folks are going to be commenting, please state your name for the record. Also, if you haven't done so already, sign in the back. Signing in serves the purpose of figuring out how to spell your name when we're compiling the transcript for the meeting, so that's super helpful. And silence your cell phone if you have one. Okay, our current claims list. This would be claims received as of October 4th, 2018 to October 16th, 2018 by the Commissioner's Office. Totals $1,269,505.88. We have two public hearings today, and I'll go ahead and open the first one. This will be introduced by Commissioner Rowley. It's a resolution establishing and supporting the Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee.
Thank you. And just for clerical purposes, we are calling it a Criminal Justice Coordinating Council instead of committee. The C can stand for three things: commission, committee, or council, and it's used differently across the nation. So we decided to use the word council in ours. And I did talk about this yesterday when we unveiled the receipt of the MacArthur Foundation grant. This is a discussion we began having before we knew we were going to receive that money. The fact that there is a lot going on at the city, county, and state level in the criminal justice system, and people have done a really great job within their departments and within their jurisdictions, but really to take things to the next level, we all really need to get out of our silos and work cross-jurisdictionally. And so what the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council does is pulls together a lot of elected and appointed officials from all those levels of government, and then ultimately as well brings in community stakeholders and partners in the community who are doing a lot of the work in the criminal justice system as well, to have a more holistic and collaborative representation of the system in decision-making and strategizing for moving forward to make improvements to the system. It was very fortuitous that we had started putting together this group. And then after the first meeting of kind of pulling together people to see if there was interest in doing this, we had the invitation to apply for the MacArthur Foundation money. And so we waited for the second meeting until we knew if we had the money or not, because I think with the $700,000 from MacArthur, that will outline at least a big portion of the work plan of what this group will be overseeing for the next 2 years. Again, but independent of that money, this group had agreed that it was important to come together and move forward in a cohesive fashion. And how we kind of decided to put it together was there is a National Institute of Corrections publication called Forming a CJCC, and so I just read that and have been following their checklists of how to put this together with obviously a large group of people along the way. So what we hope to accomplish with this, and I'll just kind of read off of the resolution, I didn't really prepare anything, but to best meet the goal of improving social justice and protect the safety of citizens and improve the system, it is necessary that all the various allied entities coordinate their efforts and work together to evaluate and identify programs and services that will improve the system. It provides a forum for the community and also draws upon expertise from all the people involved in the system, which is very different. You can imagine on different issues, the prosecutors and the public defenders have very different and very important perspectives. Facilitate systemic changes, work collaboratively to enhance services, improve social justice, strengthen public safety, maximize available resources, and recommend strategies that will reduce crime and increase the public's confidence in the criminal justice system. So this is a council that will serve as an independent council, and the members will elect their chair, and it will not, though, usurp any authority from independent elected officials such as the county attorneys, the commissioners, the sheriff. We will still be independently in charge of our own departments, but this is more of a collaborative, overarching group under this independent council. And so I would ask and recommend that the commission supports the establishment of this coordinating council today. From that, we would move forward and ask the city to pass a similar resolution of support since they're very involved in this, and move forward with drafting bylaws for the group to be approved.
Thank you. Is there any public comment on this resolution establishing a CJCC? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Any questions or comments from the commission?
I'd just like to thank COLA for really taking the lead on this, to doing the research, going to different workshops across the country to learn more about what other communities have done to make things more effective and efficient, so that the system works better, but it also serves the people that are in the system better, and hopefully keep some of them out. So I would be happy to move that we approve the resolution establishing the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council in Missoula County and authorize the expenditure of funds as deemed necessary through the annual budgeting process.
Second.
And just to echo Commissioner Curtis's comments, thanks, Cola. This is really fantastic work, and it's nice to see us move beyond just planning, and we are, I think, implementing something here, and particularly when coupled with the John T. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation grant, to really see the fruits of our labor, I think, and to be able to track outcomes, I think, will be immensely important to really moving us forward in addressing criminal justice issues in our community. So I'll gladly support this. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, our second public hearing, which I'll open, is an ordinance prohibiting the carrying of firearms in Missoula County-owned buildings, schools, and certain areas of public assembly. And we will begin with a staff report from Matt Jennings with the Attorney's Office.
Thank you, Commissioner Strohmeyer. Vicki Zire couldn't be here today and asked me to speak as a replacement for her. I helped draft some of the revisions to this ordinance and appreciate the opportunity to give you an update about what we're trying to do here. This is a housekeeping measure. It's something meant only to update an ordinance that's been on the books in Missoula County since 1995. There are a variety of state laws that put some restrictions on where firearms are allowed and where they aren't. For instance, there's state laws that restrict firearms being carried into schools. There's some restrictions on concealed weapons being carried into areas where there's offices for local governments. And then state law also allows cities and counties to pass other minor restrictions on where firearms are allowed. So since 1995, Missoula County has had an ordinance that had some restrictions on where firearms were permitted. The problem is, in recent years, as we started looking over that ordinance, there were some problems with not being consistent with the current state of Montana law, and also providing a building list that is outdated to the current ownership in Missoula County. So for instance, the 1995 ordinance prohibited firearms on county-owned grounds. So for instance, lawns and parking lots owned by Missoula County, and that's actually something that's not allowed under state statute. So that's something that needs to be clarified. The ordinance also prohibited explosives, which clearly nobody wants in public buildings, but it's not something that the county can regulate through an ordinance. That's already illegal under state statute. And then, as I mentioned, it provided a list of buildings. It had about 10 specific buildings that were owned by the county in 1995, and that building list, if you look at it, is just very inaccurate and outdated to the ownership in 2018. There also were some buildings that were left off the list, which leads me to the three reasons that we started relooking at this ordinance. One, we were contacted in 2016 by the Missoula County Elections Office asking about the status of carrying firearms into polling places. And we did a little bit of research in the county attorney's office and also contacted the Secretary of State's office. The issue at that time is there were several public demonstrations involving firearms at polling places in other areas of the country. I don't want to represent to you that this has been an issue here, but the elections office was trying to understand if they had an event like that, how they would respond. Now, a lot of the polling places are located in schools, and there's already some prohibitions on carrying firearms into schools, but several of our polling locations are not in schools. For instance, the fairgrounds. Right now, under the current ordinance and state law, you can carry a weapon into the polling location at the fairgrounds, but you couldn't into a polling location, say, at a school. The elections office wanted to find some sort of consistency so they could train their election judges, and then also if there was ever an event, if law enforcement had to respond, they knew what they could expect. Churches are also on that list. Fire districts sometimes act as polling locations. So one of the things the elections office wanted to do is just make sure that there were clear parameters around where firearms were allowed and where they weren't on election day. One day, well, I guess usually several days each year, depending on school elections and other elections going on. The other department that we were contacted by was the library. There was at least one open carry situation at the library during regular business hours in the last year. I don't know all the specifics of that, but the question at that time was, what do we do? And I said, well, it's a little unclear. Somebody may be violating other offenses, especially if they're being threatening with a firearm, but just carrying a firearm open or concealed through the library is not something that's prohibited under the current ordinance. And the library just wanted a few more tools to be able to address those issues before they arose, especially, when children are present and other events are going on at the library. And then we were also contacted by the fairgrounds wanting a little bit more clarity in where firearms were allowed there. And again, I think that was partly related to the election center being located at the fairgrounds and wanting to understand those rules a little bit better. So we started drafting some amendments to this ordinance. And like I said, it's really a housekeeping measure. There aren't many practical differences that most people are going to see, except one, we removed the grounds from county-owned property from the ordinance. That's just not something that you can regulate. We also got rid of the building list and listed all buildings owned by Missoula County. And that's actually consistent with the state of the Montana Code annotated in 1995 when the county adopted its ordinance. At that time, there was a prohibition on firearms in local government buildings. And so as the laws changed over that time, your statute doesn't fit the laws, but this is something that basically goes back to some of the state of the law in 1995 when you did pass it. We have also added in here a definition of public assembly, which would include the premises of a polling place on the day of an election or while early voting is in progress. And that's meant to address a situation where firearms are being brought into a polling place and make sure that that's just an area where already electioneering is not allowed. It's not a public forum where people are supposed to be engaging in vigorous debate. It's an area that's supposed to be basically quiet and reserved for a single isolated purpose. And so that's an area where this ordinance brings some consistency to enforcement if indeed that ever needs to occur. Essentially, those are the changes. Schools are also included here, but again, that's something that can already be enforced under state law. What this does is make sure that we have basically an umbrella ordinance that can account for some of those circumstances. So if law enforcement needs to respond, or if county employees or office buildings need to assess whether firearms are allowed in space or not, this is just much more clear than the current state in our existing ordinance. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you. This is a public hearing. Is there any public comment on this proposed ordinance? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Questions from the commission? Or a motion?
I don't have any questions. I think, as Matt said, we're just trying to take things out like grounds that aren't supposed to be there and make it real clear for everyone, especially elections. 'Cause some of our elections are also in fire halls and different places around the county, so they aren't all in a school. We're not infringing on anyone's rights. We're just making sure we're clear on this, I think, so.
Okay, thank you.
And this, so to be very clear, so this does not include county properties such as lawns and grounds, just the buildings, and not parks.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay.
I would move to approve an ordinance, the second reading of the ordinance prohibiting the carrying of firearms in Missoula County-owned buildings, schools, and certain areas of public assembly.
Second.
Any further discussion? And thanks, Matt, for your work on this. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that passes, and if I'm reading this correctly, the effective date of the ordinance is 30 days after today. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
So Matt, we will then work, if folks had a question about what buildings this applies to, we will make sure there's a list online to clarify that.
I think that's best practice. There's a link to ordinances on the county website. I think this should be posted there once it goes into effect, and there can be a building list provided there for people's information if they had any questions about that. But it will change from time to time.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other business coming before the commission today? Seeing none, we will be adjourned. Thank you.